About 45 years ago, when Josh started his MMA career, he was a lightweight. And at one point in time, one of the best lightweights on the planet. But the UFC said, we don't want the little guys. No more lightweight division. They eliminated that division for a few years, only to bring it back later. And then to add even more lighter weight classes. But it's been a very long time since the UFC has added a weight class. And as we all know, most of the other promotions will follow their lead. There's a couple of giant gaps. From 185 to 205 is 20 full pounds. And there's a whole bunch of fighters that you could talk about that are too big for one weight class, too small for another. So the question becomes, should we add weight classes? Or does that just create the mess that we have in boxing with way too many titles and way too many things going on? My name is Angelo. This is Josh Thompson, and welcome to Bad Takes. Josh, in 1986, when you were one of the best lightweights on the planet and the UFC did not have a lightweight champion, that must have been insanely frustrating. I have to imagine that was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I started training in 96, 97. So, a quick little tutorial or history lesson on this is that during that time when they got rid of the lightweights, I was the last lightweight fight for those years in between until they brought it back. It was
they were like, this is so fucking bad. We're done with the whole thing. Yeah. We're done with this whole thing.
That fight was supposed to be for the lightweight title because I was the number one guy in the world. Yves Edwards, the number two guy in the world, ranked in the lightweight division. And we were supposed to be for the UFC lightweight title. Then they said, look, we're hemorrhaging money. We need to do something. We need to get rid of this weight class. There was so much like, the weight class itself was going through a lot. Like BJ Penn had a draw with Carl Uno for the title. It didn't work out. BJ then went up and beat Matt Hughes. There was just so much going on that they didn't know what to do with the title. And so they're like, look, right now BJ's gone. You know, he was kind of like their cash cow at the lightweight division. He left and went up and beat Matt Hughes. Like, okay, well, now what do we do? Matt Serra wasn't as active. You know, Carl Uno had just got destroyed by, BJ, and then he had a really boring fight with BJ, and then it was just like, okay, what are we going to do? They had a lot of decisions made. We had great fights, Yves, myself, Hermes Franca, who else was there? Dwayne Ludwig, like those guys, Genki Sudo, we were all there. We were all trying to get those fights. But yeah, at the time, I was the number one guy in the world, and Yves was number two. He had beat Hermes to become the number two guy. And we were supposed to fight for the lightweight title. So then they put it away until 2006, I think is when they brought it back.
I saw it live in Vegas. It was on, it was BJ versus GSP was the main event. And the first lightweight fight back was like a Mark Hominick undercard fight or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember they're bringing this weight class back.
Yeah, good. I mean, I thought it was good on them. Now it's historically been one of the best weight classes to watch. One of the most entertaining weight classes to watch. So in terms of adding weight classes, because I do my show with Big John, the weight classes have already been added. Every commission, every state has the weight classes added. Now it's just up to the promotion to go ahead and add it into their promotion. So to just make sure we're clear, there's a process you have to go through if you want to add a weight class. Well, they're already added. There's one basically every 10 pounds, all the way up until you get to heavyweight at 205, then it gets to heavyweight. I think there's even a 215 or 220 weight class that's also available there to be added. So they don't need to worry about adding it. They just got to add it into their promotion. But in terms of adding a weight class, I think they only need to add one, and that is it. And what weight class do you think that is?
I would do like a 195 pound weight class.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the
or
one.
Or a 225. I would do 195
really?
or 225. There's so many little guy weight classes. 10 pounds to me, and I understand when you're cutting it, it's very different, but it's like you got 10-pound jumps. 25, 35, 35, okay. 45, 45, 55. 55 obviously goes to 70, but what are you going to do? Add a 65 or a 60? So, I think on 195 or a 225 makes sense.
Okay, can I tell you how ridiculous that sounds?
I'd love it if you did.
Okay, so look, and this is not a dig at you, just simply put, let me just explain to you why. It simply put is because I would love to add 165. And that's not because I'm a lightweight division person, but this simply put is that because there's more fighters and more athletes readily available to fight at those weight classes, that we have enough talent to put there. There's plenty of 155 pounders. So if you go 55 to 65, you can have the Islams, Habibs, those guys, the guys that were like kind of cutting a ton of weight. They don't need to cut 55. They can go to 65, and you bump 70 to 75. Now you have
so that's
85.
2 changes. Your question to me was, what weight class would you add? You're moving. All right.
Well, I'm moving one. I'm keeping the weight class, but I'm moving it. The welterweight division now will be 175, 165. It wouldn't be 5 pounds. You go
So
every 10
you're
pounds.
trying to do 10-pound increments all the way up
Up
the
to
line.
85. I'm done at 85. The reason why I'm doing that is because there's already not enough talent at 85. It's the weakest weight class in the second right now. But historically, it has been the weakest weight class in the sport. Always. All the way back before, Anderson Silva, even before that, it was the weakest weight class. Who was it? Nate Marquardt, Rich Franklin. I think,
Rich Franklin was a champ forever, and then
yeah. So it's been historically the weakest weight class. 205 was the weight class that built this sport. Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, Frank Shamrock. He's the one that was at 200. It was 200 pounds back then, and 199. Then it went to 205 because after Tito lost to Frank, Tito said, "Can you guys put it to 205?" Because he struggled to make weight. So they did him. They said, "No, we'll keep it at 205." It should be a 200-pound weight class. It really should. Now you said 225 or 220 or 215.
Yeah.
I would say no, because there's already no heavyweights. So if we add that weight class, now I'm just watering down those divisions already that are there. And look, the reason being, I think the reason why there is not enough talent in those, all those athletes that are good enough to be fighters, they're all fucking playing better sports. They get paid a lot more money. Let's be honest. Think about like Chandler Jones, right? John Jones's brother. He's in the fucking NFL. His other brother's in the NFL. They're both in the NFL, just raking in millions, right? Like, while John's literally risking his fucking life every time he steps inside the cage. Like, oh, I could die in here, get punched in the dome. These guys, of course, are running their heads into each other. I'm not saying it's much better, but you have protective gear and you're on a team, and it's like not every play goes your way, and whatever it is. Every time you get in there, you're getting punched. Every time you're in the gym, you're getting punched in the face. So my theory and my thought process on this is 165, move 170 to 175, weight classes all the way up to 175. Now you can have the 3-division champion, possibly, which is going to be historic. But then when you get to 85, you got to dial it back. 85, 205, heavyweight. I think you keep those. You just add the 165. That's just my personal opinion.
No, listen, I don't hate that. I didn't know we could move the other weight classes. So I don't hate that. I agree with you with available talent. That's why the UFC added the 145 women's division so that they can have Cyborg and those matchups. And then all of a sudden it's like, turns out there's only Cyborg. That's it. There's nobody else at this weight class. So we're getting rid of it. Amanda, just stay at 135. And they don't really, that weight class, it was never officially abolished, but it basically is, right? It's not it just doesn't kind of exist anymore because there's not enough women, and totally makes sense. I get it. With the 225-pound weight class, you would water down. What would end up happening is all the actual athletic heavyweights would just be the 225-pound champion. And then all the, anybody a little smaller would be at 205. So I understand not doing that for those reasons, just available talent. My brain was just going, these are giant gaps. And there have historically been people that were too big for middleweight, too small for light heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if you are zooming out and being like, okay, here's the active UFC roster, who would you move? And then what are you stuck with in these other two divisions? So it is an interesting topic. There's obviously more little guys than anywhere else. So the follow-up question is then let's go with your logic. I like it, right? It's every 10 pounds up to 185.
Well, it's a well thought out logic.
Which is shocking because the amount of active brain cells left, I imagine, are working real hard to put that.
Well, I mean, I do mushrooms, so my brain is regenerating itself. So
it's regrowing. So the 10-pound increments does open the door for multiple division champions. UFC has a weird relationship with that. Now they're like, no more. You abandon it and you move up. You can't hold two at the same time. But let's say in this world, the UFC would allow you to have multiple at the same time defend. You can create wild superstars, right? First ever 3-division champ, all of that. You do have the opportunity for more title fights, as long as you have the star power that in theory could result with more money and super fights as well. But do you end up with boxing where there's just too many weight classes? Like every boxer that is worth anything has 11 belts. And it's just too much and it's impossible to keep track of.
No, I agree. And people don't really, that's why boxing is irrelevant. It's always been irrelevant. You've got like 4 or 5 boxers that everyone knows, on a year-to-year basis. And then when someone goes, another one kind of slides in and takes his spot. But it's literally just 4 or 5 boxers that people keep up with during the year. That's it. Like give me some boxers right now that people really pay attention to.
I can only say Canelo, Tank Davis, and a couple of heavyweights Ryan that Garcia honestly don't have much left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ryan
cokehead
Garcia.
Ryan Garcia. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Garcia, because he puts himself into the news all the time. That's why
Yeah.
people pay attention to him. But Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis, Canelo, and then it was Tyson Fury. Now it's Usyk, but Usyk's like,
He's not going to move the needle.
no, he's
Yeah.
not really moving the needle. I love watching him fight because he's kind of that tweener. He's not a
Yeah.
big heavyweight, but
He's
he
athletic.
can box, man. He can move, he can box. So I really enjoy watching him fight. But he's not moving the needle like across the board for boxing fans. So there's 4 or 5. That's it. I mean, there's other fighters that are in there that are fantastic. No one's knocking those fighters, but you've got to really want to watch the fight. Like the Eubanks Jr. and Ben fight just happened last weekend. They're saying that broke 1 million pay-per-view buys. They said it's gonna be well over 1 million, which is amazing. Absolutely,
There's no way
amazing.
that's true.
That's what I said, and then I
How
saw
could
the
that be
aerial.
true?
Yeah, I saw the
UFC's
aerial.
struggling.
Yes, no. They were saying that it's not like basically they were saying that it's gonna do well over 1 million. It was a fantastic fight. Did you watch the fight?
No, I don't watch boxing.
Oh,
That's the problem.
geez, man.
I don't watch boxing.
It was such a great fight. Ben is the smaller fighter, but just so quick, and he has big power. Rocked Eubanks Jr. a couple times. Fantastic storyline. Eubanks Jr. and his dad got back together. His dad had basically said he was a disgrace, and then his dad was a former world champion. Just fucking awesome storyline on both sides. But I thought to me, honestly, it's probably one of the best boxing matches I've ever seen in my life. Ever.
What's funny about this was, hey, Josh, what weight classes should the UFC add? And then it was 8 minutes of boxing sucks, and here's why. It's just very typical Josh head in whatever direction conversation.
Yeah, this is what we do, though, right? I love talking about fights in general. But the thing is, boxing itself, the reason why that it sucks so much is because they've got too many weight classes. People can't keep up with it. They don't pay attention to that. It's no different than when Bellator was doing their fucking original series of tournament series fights. And the same thing with PFL. No one paid attention. Fans don't have enough attention span, MMA fans, to give a shit about, okay, when does the guy that I want to see fight? When's this tournament happening again?
Especially when it's 6 or 4 months between rounds.
Yes.
You want to bang that thing out. Let's find out today. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't care. So those are reasons why I think boxing sucks, but I think that's what they've got too many weight classes. If you are going to add the weight class, because there is a plethora of world-class guys at 155 that would rather probably fight at 165 because they don't want to cut the weight anymore. I also think you could keep talent that doesn't have to suck themselves down. Like a Dustin Poirier would probably stay. I mean, maybe not, but because it's based on, he's probably getting tired of having to keep his weight down in between. He wants to enjoy life. He's made millions. Man, can I just enjoy some time with my family and my life? And have to, at 165, I could do the same thing and still put on great fights. Donald Cerrone, same thing. Was fighting at 170. Conor McGregor fighting at 170. RDA fight at 170. Most of the time when they fight at 170, because they're getting tired of cutting the weight to get to 55 because they bulk up so much, like you during the offseason.
It's always the offseason here.
You just snorted. He laughed and it was like a little snort there.
I think it was just
rewind it back and listen to that again. He did. He just snorted. He's like,
I think it's the microphone. There was a random audio pop there.
Right.
I think my only if I'm putting on the marketing hat, adding an extra weight class, you'd only be adding one weight class in your theory,
and then moving one.
Yeah, and moving another one. Doing that creates another belt, and what it more importantly does, allows you to create a star out of somebody who may not be able to be a star in this world. For example, if Islam just stays at 155, in all likelihood, he's just cleaning through that division over and over and over. And there's not going to be anybody at 155 who could be a champion because it's going to be Islam. But you do 165, maybe Islam moves or somebody else moves. Now that second best person has the opportunity to be a world champion. Like Robert Whittaker with Izzy. For a couple of years there, they were literally number 1 and number 2 in the world, and he just couldn't get past that line. But if there was a 195-pound weight class, maybe all of a sudden one of them moves up. You do have 2 beloved champions. And then if you do a super fight, great. If not, you added a new champion of somebody that was just not going to happen for anyway. So yeah. I don't mind the idea. The only thing it could do negatively, though, is water it all down. And that is sort of what we're seeing here. We'll do a different bad takes on the pay-per-view numbers being down overall, because it is a lot of watered down. And there are a lot of champions that people don't quite care about, either A, because it's a revolving door, that belt is just bouncing around, or B, sometimes that champ just isn't active enough to build that rapport with the audience. So that would be my only concern, is you're just adding a weight class to add a weight class. And if it doesn't stay active, and if there isn't a true rise to the top leader, I think revolving door belts are just bad for the sport in general. So that would be my concern, is there's just too much fluidity and you don't have that dominance.
Yeah, I think if you were to add the weight class, though, what you'd have to do is, because now they're every 10 pounds, is that you have to basically tell these athletes you cannot move up until you defended your belt at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, criteria.
And unless you were somebody like a Bilal, like where you cleaned out the division because they didn't like you.
Yeah, even if it wasn't for a title, you already beat them all. Yeah.
You've already beat them all. Like, okay, look, there's probably 1, maybe 2, but probably just 1 or 2 people that you need to get through that are making their run, like a Shavkat. He hasn't fought Shavkat. It makes sense for you to have to defend it against Shavkat. Shavkat undefeated, only gone the distance 1 time in his career, all finishes before that. Like, that fight needs to happen if he can get past JDM. It just needs to happen. You cannot go up to 185 until I see that fight. Outside of that, there's really no one else for him to fight. You got JDM, you got Shavkat, and then maybe Ian Gary if he gets his shit together and able to, move on. But I mean, really, Bilal doesn't need to fight Ian Gary to prove anything. If he beats Shavkat, who beat Ian Gary, MMA math doesn't add up, but that's enough for, I think, most people.
You already beat Sean Brady too, even though it's like, hey, he's earned it. They're different fighters now, but he's like, I already beat him. So I agree with that. Add some criteria. Don't let just people, what Ilya did, defend it 1 time. I'm out. At least he vacated the belt, but it's like, all right, I'm out.
But with the Conor McGregor situation, didn't defend it at all.
Any of them.
With the lightweight division, didn't defend it at all.
Yeah. Two division champ defended 0 times.
Yes, and they allowed him to do it. Which, look, like it ended up being a good call on their part. They raked in the cash. Yeah. It worked out perfectly. It was like basically all that shit happened right before COVID, I believe, and they were able to cash out. It was it was a perfect storm. Let's get the Floyd Mayweather fight. Let's make $100 million, $150 million on our end. He gets $150 million or $200 million from him. And then if Floyd makes his money, they fucking raked it in on that one thing. I remember going there the week of the fight in Vegas. They had Media Row set up all week. It was like its own
Super Bowl.
City. Yeah, it was its own tent city in this huge parking lot. And it was just all the media was there. Every ESPN, Fox, CBS. I mean, like all the MMA stuff. I mean, they were all there. So it was pretty awesome to see. But yeah, adding more weight classes, I think that's the only one that I would actually do because the talent level is enough to go ahead and spread it out. And then giving the opportunity to let someone else slide in and be a star when someone's already taken over the division. Islam right now has kind of wiped out the division. He has 1 fight left, I think, against Sarukian, really. Then he can go to 65. And then whoever else we want to be champion. Charles Oliveira, to me, is already a star. He's got, 9 million followers on Instagram. Those kind of guys that have that type of following, they're stars. So let somebody else slide in there. Now I've got 2 stars in 2 different weight classes that can help carry the load. And with the amount of time that people get hurt, their contracts with these networks is you need to have title fights. That's what we want. Netflix just came out and said that. No, we want big time fights. That's what we want. So if you don't have stars, then you're not having big time fights.
Yeah. Surprisingly good take from Josh. Let us know below what you think about the weight class situation, if the UFC should add weight classes, and if so, which ones. We appreciate the watch. Let us know other bad takes you want us to cover below.